Okay, so some Rugby League news to discuss. The Super League is to expand next season from 12 to 14 teams. And the debate at the moment is which two teams should be added to Super League. There's four teams in the conversation at the moment, leading the conversation in the debate, although there's multiple teams in the Championship that, could be given a shot. The big four at the moment, are York, Bradford, Toulouse, and London. Now, as a London Broncos fan, obviously, we got relegated last season. Even without IMG grading, we would have gone down. And I've been highly critical of the IMG grading, which is going to be used to select the two new teams for Super League. There's also that big debate about whether French clubs should be involved in the Super League, Championship, and League One structure. Obviously, Toulouse are currently in the Championship. Catalan are obviously in Super League, and there is that debate whether the two French clubs should play in basically the English league system. Honestly, in a perfect world, you want to see a strong French league system, where there's a standalone French league system that can play at a similar standard to Super League and NRL in regards of professionalism and finances and a good TV deal and player development. That's in a perfect world. Hopefully we get there one day, but at the moment, the two big French clubs play in our league system. And I think they add something to it. I'm not against them playing in basically a European Super League at this point. But there are those that don't want Catalan and Toulouse as part of the system, and that debate's been raging since Catalan entered Super League way back when, in the mid 2000s. It's been a debate for a very, very long time. Also, the debate about promotion and relegation, and whether that should be part of and remain part of our sporting structure over here, which they obviously don't have in the NRL. And it's obviously a historical part of our sporting structure. We've tried franchising before and ring fencing the Super League before. We're sort of in this hybrid IMG grading kind of era at the moment, which I'm not a fan of. And I've been critical of the flaws in the IMG grading system, but it's a system that the RFL has signed up for. They've partnered up with IMG for a long-term thing, and there's like a long-term plan, and they've spent a lot of money. We're still not sure if the NRL are going to come and invest in Super League. That's been something that's been heavily discussed over the last couple of years, since the first Vegas games last year. And so that's another topic of conversation. Will we get assistance from the NRL to help with the state of the game? There's the concern about player depth, and this is where I think the RFL need to try and get more local education authorities and more schools playing the game. And this is the debate whether Rugby League in Super League and Championship and League One should remain a summer sport or go back to being a winter sport. Now, the reasoning behind making it a summer sport was so it wouldn't clash with the Premier League and football and all that, and to a certain extent Rugby Union, because some clubs actually have to share facilities with football clubs and rugby union clubs, and as a London Broncos fan, that is something that is very relevant. Wigan, they have to share with Wigan Athletic, for example. And so, that was a concern, was there was going to be, stadium availability, clashing for the TV audience, clashing where some fans actually support both the rugby league club and a football club, for example, and getting, fan attention and fans through the turnstiles, paying for tickets, etc., etc. But I do think we need to get more schools playing up and down the country, not just in the traditional heartlands. And I do think we need to get more support for growing the game at an amateur community level, again, up and down the country, not just in the traditional heartlands, although I understand the traditional heartlands is the heartbeat of the sport in this country, and that's where the majority of players and coaches and officials come from. But as a London Broncos fan, it was really refreshing to see that a lot of our elite top squad were academy graduates through the Broncos from the London and South East area. That was really heartwarming to see in recent years. That's been a big thing in recent years. There's more locally born and raised players and locally trained players. The concern I now have is with the overseas player quota being increased, and that may block potential pathways for these up-and-coming players to reach the senior level and get opportunities at the senior level. And, that's a concern that has been raised. Like, some of these players that are coming over to Super League are actually pretty good NRL first graders. Toby Sexton's going to be coming over next season, and he's probably going to rip the league to pieces. I know he's been playing well at Canterbury until Lockie Gowan, and we've discussed that, and has that sort of changed the dynamic of the Bulldogs roster and the locker room and how they're playing. But he's a solid, half 5/8 in the NRL. He's going to be a superstar in the Super League. And that is part of the problem, is you could have, a 6 or a 7 here, coming through the system at any club in Super League, Championship, League One. And then suddenly they're going to be denied an opportunity because the player quota of overseas players is increased. And that for me is a concern. The big thing for me is the TV deal. Because this is a heavily gate-driven league, because the TV deal is worth pennies. And for me, it's a shocking TV deal. You get every game live on Sky or the BBC, but it's worth less money than the last TV deal, where Sky and Channel 4 had the rights for a couple of years. And Sky Sports basically hold the sport hostage. If they want to turn the taps off, or if they don't want to, keep going with the rights, the sport's on its knees, because fans in the gates is not enough to sustain the sport and sustain player wages and club finances. And with the TV deal becoming progressively worth less and less and less money, and it has done, it's halved in value over the last 10-15 years. It's worth nowhere near as much as it used to be. And that's in actual terms. That's not including inflation and the change in economics and price rises and taxes and everything. In actual money on the table, it's worth half as much just at a starting point, and that's not including inflation, and that's devastating. There's a reason why the NRL is expanding it's already got its expansion plans in place. It knows what clubs are coming in. It knows that Perth are going to come in 2027. It knows PNG is going to come in 2028, and then they're going to figure out who that 20th team is going to be, and there are interested parties already interested by 2030 to have that 20th team in place. And this is where I think rugby league in this country is severely lagging behind, and has done for some time. And it's worrying for me. I don't know which two clubs are going to be added. We're going to see what decision the RFL and IMG make. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the London Broncos and York, to be honest. I know the Romantics want the Bradford Bulls back, but are they financially stable enough, and is the stadium up to scratch? Because Bradford have had their problems, and very publicly had their problems, and there's other clubs in the Championship that could also be considered as well. Will Toulouse get in there? That's a possibility. I would rather it was done on the pitch with by merit, by what you do on the field. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Magic Round, there's question marks over the future of Magic Round. And should that stay? I think it should. I think Magic Round's one of the few things the RFL's got right over the years. Fans love it. Fans from all over the country love it. It doesn't matter what stadium you play it at. Preferably at St James's Park. I think that's been the best venue they've played Magic Round at. But fans love Magic Round. That's a big selling point. Because we did Magic Round first, the NRL followed. And then the AFL have their own version of Magic Round now, which is a completely different sport. So Magic Round works. And it's one of the few decisions the RFL's got right. Now, the RFL's got a lot of other issues to sort out, like the Challenge Cup final at Wembley. I mean, the attendances have been terrible for a long time. Did a video on that. Is it time to move the Challenge Cup final away from Wembley? I know they're contracted, I think, to 2027. But even if, look, I'm a London Broncos fan, I would not mind travelling up to the Midlands or the North to watch a Challenge Cup final should the London Broncos make it, hypothetically. It'd be a fun weekend away, and London's a very expensive city to go to and travel to. It's not cheap. And I think this is where the RFL have got things wrong over the years. But look, we'll see what two sides get added to Super League. There's going to be a debate, and fans of the teams that don't get selected are going to be, we've missed out, frustration. I do think the relationship between the RFL and IMG hasn't worked as intended. I think there's been a lot of unintended consequences. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding it. Not everyone's on board with it. I still personally think promotion and relegation is a key part of our sporting culture in this country. And I think that needs to be considered. And I think it needs to remain, personally. And there'll be those who disagree and say we should go for, an elite competition, and then the lower competitions to be classed as like reserve grade, like they do in the NRL, where you develop talent. And there is that debate, and that is a fair debate to have. But look at the damage ring fence has done to rugby union's premiership. It hasn't worked. Clubs are buggered. There's no jeopardy for being at the bottom because we don't have a draft system. So the promotion relegation aspect brings jeopardy. It makes every game matter. And there is that kind of jeopardy you can sell to TV companies. And this is another thing with the overseas TV deal. Sort of Australia, because games are broadcast in Australia with the Super League, and they do a good job over there. But looking at the North American market, rugby league as a sport is a far easier sport, I think, to understand for casual American fans than rugby union. It is. And I think this is where we're missing a trick by not really trying to promote the game, the RFL that is, to the American audience. Now, yes, we have now signed up for the Vegas games, and now 2 Super League clubs a year go over to Vegas with the NRL. And that wasn't the original intention. The original intention was it'd be the NRL going to Vegas on their opening weekend and having like a festival. And it's been a success. There's been those people who have been questioning it, but it's working. The RFL just tagged along. And this is where the debate about whether the NRL should invest in Super League has come from, and the future of the World Club Challenge as well needs to be discussed. But it's going to be interesting. There's going to be big changes. The loop fixtures are going to disappear. There are still questions over Magic Round. I think it should stay. We need to discuss the TV deal because that's more games. More games should automatically mean a bigger TV deal because you've got more games to broadcast. So we'll see how that impacts the value of the TV deal when it comes to the next round of negotiations and the direction the game's taking. But we also need to seriously look at player development from youth and community level, grassroots level, getting more schools playing, and colleges and universities, and working more pathways in. Because pathways and player development is what is ultimately going to improve the game. Not importing washed up NRL talent or rugby league talent from Australia that couldn't crack the NRL, and journeyman players at the end of their careers who've run out of legs, who can't compete in the NRL anymore because they're getting bashed up, so they're going to come to a slightly slower paced, slightly lower level quality. The best way to improve quality and drive standards is through good pathways, good player development, and good competition for places from locally trained lads and girls in the women's game. The best way to improve things is to increase participation and therefore drive competition for places at elite level and community level as well, and get people playing the game. This is where I think the RFL is missing a trick. And if we want to grow the game domestically, we've got to look at the Midlands and the south of England. We've got to look at Scotland. We've got to look at Wales. And we've got to have a discussion about how it can be done in a sustainable and viable way. Because at the moment, the game is struggling financially. And in part, massive part, is the TV deal. The TV deal is killing the game. But we shall see what happens. But yeah, next year, 2 new teams. We'll see who gets added and announced. But from me for now, thank you very much for watching. If you are a rugby league fan, place your thoughts in the comments section below. And I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.